Hello, hello. Welcome to season 5 of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. My name is Debbie Heiser, and I help entrepreneurs make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what's important to them. I see way too many business people letting their businesses or their jobs run their lives versus them figuring out with real clarity about what they want their lives to look like and having their job or their business be the conduit to have that life that they absolutely love. I want to thank you so much for listening in to season 5. This season is filled with motivation, inspiration, leadership, and wisdom from some super interesting guests, and myself included. My hope is through our shared experiences, you will see a bit of yourself and move further into leading your own lit up life. If you're enjoying this podcast, please feel free to share with others and leave a rating, and a comment or two would be awesome too. Let's get going. Thanks again for being a part of our community.
Straight from the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Lit Up Life. I am Debbie Heiser. I help entrepreneurs make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what's important to them. And I am thrilled today to have my friend Jessica on. And I want to share just a little bit about how I met Jessica. I don't remember the exact time that we met, but we have both spoken at some events together. And when you got up and spoke, I'm so in like the action all the time and like blah, blah, blah. And I spent so long in corporate America that I didn't really get in touch with more of my, what I would call softer side, because right now I don't want to get into gender, but like just more of that softer side and that emotional piece of it. And I hadn't really done a lot of emotional work when I first met you, and you were on stage and you had all these women and men crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, like she is like so authentic and I just love her and I want to be around her. Like I want her to be one of my people. And it was at like one of the women's events like the chamber, I think. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I had shivers. I was just like so moved. And then we have crossed paths here or there. We follow each other on Facebook, saw each other at events occasionally.
Right.
And then now are in a networking group, a local networking group, and have retouched base. And so I just have been so intrigued by you and your story. And I have to tell you, you are all going to see this if you watch this on YouTube, and you're going to hear it if you're listening, that Jessica, you just seem to have this. I know we all have ups and downs, but you have this, like, I talk about a vase, right? Like that you fill this vase and then let everybody get what's the overflow instead of pouring out to people.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
you resemble to me this person that lets the energy come in because you just have this overflow of energy. So that's why I wanted to interview you and have this conversation with you. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you.
Like, let's be done
yourself.
with that.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going home now.
Mic drop.
I live with a 14-year-old. He doesn't have any nice things like that to say. Fantastic.
I adore you. So Jessica, I'm going to have you introduce yourself and kind of tell a little bit about how you show up in the world. What is it that you do?
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Thank you. So my name is Jessica Bonar. It's very important that you pronounce my last name correctly. It's not French, although if you say it like it's French, it sounds fancier. It's Bonar. I have had a variety of jobs or careers, if you will. Right now, I do two things. I wear two career hats. One of them is that I work in the employee benefits space, and I work with employers to help them create a strategy and find the ideal strategy for them to be able to invest in their employees through benefits, and educate the employees and support them in what they have. And then the other hat I wear is that I am a keynote inspirational motivational speaker. I don't know why I don't love the motivational word, because that's
you're an inspirer.
I I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so I speak with a variety of different demographics, some of them in a corporate setting, some of them in a more personal growth setting. And when we talk about like different like chamber events or things of that nature, but I've also done corporate leadership and such
Mhm.
like that. The overarching thing for me is that several years back, I was able to put some verbiage to what it feels like. What's my goal? What is it that I'm always trying to do? What's the jam, right? And it is then my purpose statement. And that's in my bio. And it says, I must inspire people with simple solutions to complex problems that'll change their life.
Yeah.
And so that's why I get to do that in all areas. And whenever I get to do that is when I feel like I am in sync with the universe. But when I am speaking, that is when the universe and I feel like I am literally in sync and complete and absolute unison with the universe. It's when I feel like I am fulfilling my purpose to at 100%.
Yeah. And thank you. And that's really obvious if anyone's ever seen you or heard you in person, which is part of, I mean, the podcast is Lead Your Lit Up Life, right? Like you light up when you're on stage and you're really good at it. And so, Jessica, I have a question for you. Like,
Yeah.
where did that come from? Like, what prompted you to start speaking? And then when you were speaking, knowing that was like your thing, that was your purpose.
Okay, so I guess I wish I could say like, ooh, there was this one time and this one singular identifiable moment, because I know some people have those like spiritual experiences and then the burning bush happened and then you're like, and then I just knew.
Yeah. And then
I
there
think it
was
a
one
little
day at
bit
band
more,
camp.
yeah, a little bit more of the, educational variety. So from a public speaking standpoint, it is a skill that I was born with. And I have always, my parents just would say, I've always been a talker. When I was little, they would have to say, you have to take 2 more bites before you're allowed to talk again when we were eating dinner, because I just would always talk. But I like I gave one of the speeches at 8th grade graduation. I had that comfort and that presence. And so it's been something that over the course of time that people are like, hey, can you do this? Can you? Yeah, absolutely. And I do really well with sharing with people. So I'm a big, my friend calls it a social vampire. He's a social vampire. Like he just feeds off of other people's social interactions, and I love that feeling. And so some people have said, how do you get over being nervous? And I said, I don't get nervous. I get excited. And so I was born with that. Which is just this innate gift. But any gift we have to foster it in order for it to actually come to its true potential and purpose. And so I would say to you, for a long time I felt like I had a gift, but I didn't know what I was supposed to say. And I talked to my mom about that. Like I feel like I need to figure out what it is I have to say, like what's worth listening to, what is meaningful enough. Why would I, and so the reality is, what motivated me to share was really an exceptional amount of pain. Pain is a great motivator, and pain is a great motivator for us in our lives to change, to enact solutions, to dig, to find the source. But it also then becomes, when we come out of that at any degree, it becomes our greatest asset, that we then are uniquely qualified to share that with somebody else, and hopefully then help somebody else with the pain that they're experiencing, to let them know, 1, you're not alone. 2, there is a solution. There's hundreds of them, as a matter of fact. Here's, and that there is hope, because I've been in situations, most of them self-imposed. I'm a self-made misery girl. I don't know about you guys.
I think that's pretty, because we are first cause,
most
right?
of my BS, like everyone's like, oh, you're an overcomer. And I was like, can you really call it that if I'm the one who got myself in the hole? like I overcame the hole, but I like had the shovel. I was like, hey, it's my fault, I'm here, you
Yep.
know. But so that became the motivator, I think, was that I have experienced enough pain and enough joy. And
Yeah.
having experienced that contrast, I now have this internal desire to share that with others. This insight, this being an observer of the world, of being an observer of others, of being an observer of myself, and asking questions that make you really uncomfortable. And I
I think
love
you get
it.
joy out of that. I was gonna
I
say, yeah, because
I
I'm the
do.
same way. Yeah.
I do. I'm the friend that you go to if you want to have hard conversations, you want to hear hard things, not with love,
Yeah.
but I will also ask you some questions that ask you to figure out some new stuff about yourself, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I hate talking about the weather unless it's whether or not we're going to go skiing, and so how much snow are we going to get? Other than that, like unless it's going to ruin my itinerary, I don't want to talk about the weather or anything non,
Yeah. So
anything
Jessica,
fluffy.
I have a question for you about this, and I'm mirroring a little bit because one of the things that I found, because I joke that like I stay here for about 2 seconds and then you better follow or not, right? Because I go super deep really quickly. And I found that to be a really good strength, but sometimes it's also an Achilles heel. Have
Oh
you
yeah.
experienced that too? And if so, like tell us about a situation where that happened and you kind of had this realization, oh, like I found I just kind of have to meet people where they're at times. And then occasionally we can get deeper, but I tend to go deep really quickly. And then I have to back up.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, absolutely, it's an asset and a liability. One of the things that there's this like we all have these innate desires for whatever it is, for security, and whether it's romantic security, emotional security, financial security, physical security, like whatever. We have all of these needs. Like I have a desire to be loved by like by people, by my family, by by a love interest, etc. But it's when I recognize that I'm operating to meet those needs, but I'm operating outside the margins of
Mhm.
like I'm on, I'm on overdrive to meet that need,
Yeah.
is when it becomes a liability for me. And so when I am trying to connect with people that aren't in a position to connect, when I'm trying to connect with people that that's not their jam, no thank you, or
Yeah.
they don't know me well enough, or it absolutely can become a liability. Um, the thing that comes to mind is that it becomes a time liability.
Mhm.
So I and not just for me maybe, but for those I encounter. So I'm at this coffee shop slash wellness lunchy place that makes you feel good about yourself when you eat the food. And so I'm sitting there just having some time to myself and looking through emails on my phone, and I see a woman that I haven't seen in months and months and months. And she goes, and I said, oh my gosh. And we hug and we do the long hug. And we do the long hug where we're like absolutely sharing energy. And then I
Mhm.
go, how are you doing? And she goes, you know, and I go, no. I go, how are you doing for real? And she just started to tear up right there,
Mhm.
and she looks at me and she goes, God, I love you so much. And so we sat down and she's like, okay, and her order was ready and she's got to go in 3 minutes. And so 25 minutes later,
Yeah.
she's like, I had said a couple of things. She was crying. She said, you always know the questions I need to be asked. And it's
Mhm.
incredible. And we haven't seen each other in like 6 months. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but then she's like, I'm late. I'm late for everything now because I was just supposed to like run in, grab the to-go order. And
But it's such a
so
gift.
I
But
know,
such
but
a
sometimes
gift
like,
that
should
you
I
have.
turn off the spigot? Should I not ask? Should I say, let's, let's put something on the calendar right now instead of
Yeah,
let's have the conversation right now. But she was ready to have the conversation. She just didn't have the time.
absolutely.
And sometimes you make the time anyways, but yeah. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you think about, like you talked about leadership development, you talked about speaking, like as you go forward, one of the things that we were talking about is how you kind of determine what you talk about. And so I'm just going to ask you what we were talking about before. Tell me about, or tell all of us about, a recent powerful message that you are finding that's super powerful that you're sharing with audiences, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So I have two that like really are come to mind, and then I'll spend lion's share of my time on the other. I told you, like, and then you're like, you have to take 2 more bites before you're allowed to talk again, because it's what I do. So so one is I did a talk a few years back, and it was called The Pit. And you can I did it at an event. They had a beautiful videographer and stuff, so you can find that on YouTube. It's 18 minutes of your life. I hope you're not wasting your time. But that was born out of I had a different idea for that event. I pitched a different idea, and I told the organizer, I said, I'm going through the process. I'm going through my normal, creative process where I get this idea, and the ideas just keep coming, and I mill over it, and I get these ideas and I put them all on the shelf. And then when it gets closer to the time that I'm going to give the message, I pull all those ideas off the shelf. And if there's 20 of them, in different, like, whatever, then I find the cohesion, and then I craft the message, right? And so I pitched this idea, and I said, and Terry, it's not going anywhere. Like, I'm following my creative process and I'm stuck and I don't know what to do. So Terry said, Jessica, you got 15 minutes left on the planet. What do you have to say? What do you have to say?
What a great acid question.
Right. And so I go, oh, that there is a good life and it's available to you no matter what. I don't care who you've been or what you've done. There is a good life and it's available to you. And there is no expiration date on that. Today can be the day that you make a decision to change your mind and you change your direction. Today can be the day you start to become the person you've always wanted to be, the person that can look in the mirror and smile back at yourself. And he was like, okay, that was real fast. You knew that answer. And he said, why do you say that? And I said, Terry, I was a drug addict, and I was a deep in the weeds drug addict. I came out of that, and I said, only to find myself in a pit of alcoholic depression 10 years later. And I found myself back in the same pit where you were like, this feels like the same pit. They just changed the wallpaper, right? So I was like, how did I get here? I thought I was a smart enough girl. I got myself out once. And so and we talked about it, and I said, I used to be 111 pounds, I'm 5'6". I should not be 111 pounds ever.
Yeah.
And so this gentleman had only ever known me in a professional capacity in my business suits and, and heels, etc. And he said, I never would have known that about you. I never would have suspected that about you. And that is the most powerful and beautiful visual I can even fathom. Right. So that was something that I discovered in that, was that, the conversation in that message goes so much further beyond anybody who is in recovery or anyone who needs recovery, right? And that this pit and the way that I think of it and the way I describe it, and then most importantly, like, here's some suggestions on how to get out. Like, don't stay there. It's terrible. It's very uncomfortable. Get out.
Yeah.
But here's some, here's kind of how I got out. And the thing is, people came, I thought, oh, I'm going to be the recovery girl, which is nothing wrong with that, but like that. And I had people come up to me and say, I'm in a pit right now. And they talked about being in a financial pit. I've had people talk to me that say they're in a marital pit, or that they're in a mental and behavioral health pit, or and like all and some who are in drug addiction or alcoholism or what. And so like all these things, right? And the applicability and the broad application was so exciting to me. So so I've taken that and I've given that message several times. In the midst of developing that message and giving that message and sharing that with different audiences for a couple of years, this other idea came through. And as you're kind of inspecting okay, I got out of the pit. Who am I now? What does that look like after you get out? Like, awesome, dust yourself off. Cool. Now what? Right. And like, now where are we going? the idea was we live in this really polarized world.
Mhm.
And I don't even mean, I actually don't mean politically at all. I mean like emotionally, socially, societally, and things that we are born with, we're taught, we're raised with. I'm winning or I'm losing. I'm
Right. There's the
succeeding or
or.
I'm failing. I'm right or I'm wrong. I am good or I'm bad. I'm pretty or I'm ugly. I'm skinny or I'm fat. And there is no middle ground. We spend all of our discussion and all of our time and all of our energy of
Yeah.
trying to not only figure out where we are, what side of the pendulum we're on, but then spending all of our energy pushing it to the other side as quickly as possible so we can be on the good side, so we can be on the right side, so we can be on the whatever. And what I think about is that when the pendulum is at greatest peace is when it's in the middle.
Yeah. It's
That
the and.
exactly, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I have this thing that I am both and.
Yeah.
Everything is both and. I am winning and I'm losing. I'm succeeding and I'm failing. I'm a
Yeah.
leader and a follower. Like, and not even just in different areas of my life, that it's not like, oh, I'm a leader over here and I'm a follower over here, but that I should actually be pursuing the balance. I should actually be honoring the balance.
Mhm.
And that the goal for me is to understand that it is growth, peace, contentment. That's my end game.
Yeah.
Growth, peace, contentment, the things that offer you serenity. And
Yeah.
in serenity is joy. And in serenity, like I have chaos. I have some really, really major life changes happening right now, like huge, but I have peace.
Yeah.
And I have given this talk for a handful of times now, and it's so powerful. It is
Yeah.
a laugh and cry kind of thing, and it is called both and. You know,
Oh, that's great.
and I'll just share this. It's the idea, right? Like, for example, I used to think everyone used to say, "You're such a strong, independent woman." And that's such a badge, like, yeah, what? You know, give me a plaque on my say, like, yeah, I am. You know, here's my Wonder Woman, pew, pew, you know, come on, world. So here's the thing, someone would say that to me, but I knew that I fell apart on the whole drive to work.
Yeah.
I knew that I was sobbing and sad and angry and lonely and frustrated and so I thought when you said you're a strong, independent woman, that it was a farce. I
Yeah.
thought if only you knew, if only you knew. And
And
what
that's
I learned,
exhausting.
oh, it's so
Yeah.
terrible to think that you're doing everything. And it's not even like I'm just trying to put on a good front, because I'm all about showing the world. I'm all about crying
Yeah.
in public. Fuck it. But
Yeah.
oh, cussing. Sorry.
That's okay. You're okay.
Okay. Sorry, everybody. Now she has to put a warning on it, a content warning. You can bleep me
You're
out.
okay.
Um, but what I came to realize and what I came to understand and that I find peace in is that I am a strong, independent woman. You know why? Because I fell apart.
Right.
I'm a strong, independent woman, and I took the world off my shoulders. I set it down. I felt fatigued. I honored my fatigue. I
Mhm.
felt my feelings. I expressed my emotions. I embraced what they were. I identified them. Now I can do something about it or something with it, or maybe that's all I needed to do was just feel it. And
Yeah.
now I actually have the strength to pick the world back up and put it back on my shoulders. I'm both,
Absolutely.
man. I'm both and
Yeah. And
it's
Jessica,
been
I love
so
that.
powerful.
I love that because it is powerful and it follows. So I teach a lot on the universal laws, and the universal law of polarity says it's all here and it's all here right now. Right? Like everything has two sides.
Right.
You know, like I show you this piece of paper and you see it's my shit list. I show you this side and it's my notes that I'm taking to ask you follow-up questions, right? Like, but we see different perspectives. And what I love about that talk is that you're saying, look at both. And in a way, you're giving permission. What I heard was like two things that you're giving permission to people is that you're giving permission to say, I am both and it's okay. And then I also was hearing permission about we're not our past, right? We're the only animals I love Ted Lasso. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a great like leadership show and it's just fantastic. And he talks about this guy's getting really down on himself for not doing well in the soccer game. And he sits down with him and he says, hey, do you know what animal has the shortest memory? And the guy's like, no, I don't. He goes, it's a goldfish. The second something happens, they forget it. So be a goldfish, right? Like forget
Right.
and not forget your past, but like, you don't have to relive that over and over and over again. And that's kind of what I was hearing you say too. And so I love the fact that I'd love to hear you speak on this. So let me know and I'll come video you. It'll be with my Apple phone, but
I love it.
I'd love to hear that
Absolutely.
talk, but about like this fact, because I talk to a lot of clients. It doesn't have to be either or, like figure out the end,
Right.
right? Like even as you go forward with a business model, you don't have to just do this. It can be this too.
Right.
And we do live in such a polarized world where it feels like it has to be this or this. And what I find, and I don't know if you find this, I'm kind of hearing this a little bit, is that then what happens is people feel like they want to be this, but they know they're both. And so they put this mask on that I got my shit together.
Right. Or they
Right.
feel forced to, or
Yes.
we put ourselves in a position to not allow growth because we have to pretend we've already grown.
Yeah.
So this morning, and this is like a weird example, but this morning, my 14-year-old is into playing volleyball. That's not
Yeah.
his primary gig, but he's super digs it and like maybe wants to do it right. And so there's a couple
Yeah.
of places in town that you can go to open gym nights. And but he heard that there's this one place that does it, but he overheard these guys talking and like everybody that's there pretty much knows what they're doing and they're like pretty good. And
Mhm.
so he goes, so I want to go because I want to go learn. He goes, but I don't want to be the worst guy in the room. And I said, and he goes, so like, I don't, and I go, well, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
I said, because that's uncomfortable. I go, we also have to find enough humility to
Yeah.
be the worst person in the room so that we don't have to always be the worst person in the room at that skill
Right.
or
Right.
at that one. Right. And it was just quiet in the car for a minute. Like, I don't have to beat the dead horse, but it's the idea that, I have to go admit I don't know so
Yeah.
that I can know.
Yeah.
And there's so much like, nope, I know, it's fine. It's good. I know. It's,
Yeah.
Or well, I've always wanted to do that, but
Yeah.
and
Like, oh, the
so
time goes by anyway.
right.
Go
Talked to this
do it.
woman the
Yeah.
other day and she goes, well, I know I'm just scared. And I go, great. I said, you should be.
Mhm.
Do it anyways.
Yeah.
And she goes, I know I'm scared. And I said, I would be scared too, but it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So do
Yeah.
it anyways. Do it scared.
Okay, so I want to ask you one final question before I ask you where people can find out about you. Talking about doing something that's scary, and I get the impression you're somewhat this way too. Like I force myself, and not in a bad way, but I force myself to go into the uncomfortable because I find that the more I go into the uncomfortable, the more comfortable it feels. It's never super comfortable, but it's not as scary. Let's put it that way. It's not comfortable, but it's not as scary.
Mhm.
And like when I got divorced, I jumped out of an airplane and it was like a ritual, and I'm scared to death of heights. You have to understand that. And it was like a ritual for me that I was like free, right?
Right.
So I want to know, what's one scary thing that you've done that you stepped into? And I mean, I do it with my business all the time too, right? And people and relationships and this and that, but like, what's one scary thing that you can share that you've done
Yeah.
that you thought,
Okay.
I'll never do this?
Well, I'll say it was scary and or I had a lot of trepidation and I did it anyways. So my best friend and she's my best friend of like 27 years. God bless her. She's such a good friend. She's been my maid of honor twice.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's a good friend.
Yes, it is.
Gentlemen. So her and I finally, our kids are old enough to be like, let's go on a trip without our children. We'd been going on little weekend trips every couple of years. We take a little weekend trip together. Let's go on a trip. So we decide we're going to go on a trip and we're going to go to Spain. We book it. We're super pumped. We're going to go on a little sampler platter and spend a couple of days here, a few days here, a few days here. It's going to be amazing, right? We've been looking, we booked it 6 months out. We're super excited. It's right after my super busy season at my the insurance industry. So like, this will be an incredible relief, and I can't wait for the adventure, right? So 36 hours before we are supposed to take off, my friend who was she was like, oh, I don't like this and that, ends up being diagnosed with a blood clot. And they say, you're not going anywhere. You're definitely not getting on a plane. And I, so now the conversation is, what do we do? The way we booked our trip was everything is like non-transferable, non-refundable, all the non, right? And so it was, I go, okay, I'm gonna go anyways. And I said, we'll pick another time, we'll pick another trip, it'll be amazing. And but I said, I need this. Like, I need this. I was earlier this year was the worst depression I've ever experienced in my life. And I knew that I needed some time and growth and adventure. And so I did it anyways. And I got on a plane and I went to Barcelona, and then I went to Mallorca, and then I went to Madrid, and I was gone for 9 days. And I did it by myself.
Jessica, that's fantastic. I want to have a longer conversation. We might have to go to Tyree Coffee and have a longer conversation about this. That's fantastic. And Jessica, thank you so much for sharing. And I just, like, you're such a heartfelt, like, you lead your speech with your heart. And I just really, really appreciate that. And so if someone wanted to find out more about you, maybe book you for a speaking gig, where would they find your information?
Yeah, super exciting. Thank you for having me. This was rad.
Absolutely.
And definitely coffee. Coffee's a love language for me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, me too.
You can find me on the internet at jessica-bonar.com. And I'm pretty sure if you just put Jessica Bonar, like, it would come up, because oddly enough, I think there's more than one of us, but you'll see the blonde hair. But jessica-bonar.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, Jessica Bonar keynote speaker, Jessica Bonar speaker, and I'm on LinkedIn. If you're on my website, you can see a little video montage of some of the different talks that I've done. And then there is a spot to say, book Jessica, book me now. And that gives you an opportunity to start a dialogue about your event and what your goals are for the event, and hopefully the opportunity for me to come and share, like, open up my gut sack and share my soul with your peeps.
There you go. That was a visual.
And on that note,
right. And on that note, folks, if you would like to talk to me a little bit more, please feel free to reach out to me via www.leadyourlituplife.com and sign up for a 30-minute clarity call. You'll be clearer after 30 minutes than you were when we started. I will guarantee you that. And I would love to chat with you more. So Jessica, thank you again. And everyone have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening. The song Ride is co-written and sung by Miss Jackie Wilson and her collaborators Tyler Banks, David DJ Lee, and Chris Renee. And a huge shout out to them for allowing us to use this perfect song. Everyone have a fabulous week, and I'll talk to you next week.